Hello, Charlie Gladstone here, and welcome to my first Some Good Ideas online tutorial, part 1. Oops. I am recording this during the lockdown and I'm doing it very much by myself, so it is not a technical spectacle. It is lit entirely by a very grumpy Welsh sky, which is chucking wintry rain at my window, and I am sitting behind a tie-dyed sheet that I dyed in a vat of indigo at the weekend, and my camera is resting very precariously on a very old and slightly rickety tripod. But I hope that my ideas will be useful. This is called How to Change and Why You Must Do It. And it's aimed essentially at single person businesses or small businesses, but actually the lessons apply to big business. Change is absolutely necessary every single day to allow businesses to thrive. Not only that, I think that during this lockdown, transformation is critical if we want to survive afterwards. I don't think it's a choice. I think that if we don't change, then we are probably done by this. And that sounds very fatalistic, but if you embrace change and you know how to make it, and that's what I'm hoping I'm going to be able to help you with today, then you'll be fine, honestly. And in fact, during this time when we can't really control anything that is going on in the external world, we can control our thoughts and our plans and our desire to transform our business. But this is not just about now, about the lockdown. It's about always. It's about the process of change. My absolute favourite business mantra comes at the beginning of a novel, and that is Lampedusa's brilliant short novel, The Leopard, which I really urge you to read. And that is, to stay the same, everything must change. And that at first, of course, seems like paradoxical nonsense, but it very much isn't, because life always involves change. To progress, we must change. I mean, to be crass, think about intractable parents who send their 11-year-old daughter to bed at the same time as they sent her when she was 6. I mean, that isn't allowing the child to evolve, to grow, and to adapt to a new world, is it? More relevantly to business, I always like to think about Napster and the way that Napster came along to evolve the idea of the way that music had been sold into file sharing. And the record companies literally just jumped on Napster's back. Ooh, that was a good bit of acting. Jumped on Napster's back, and they spent years and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars trying to shut down Napster. And while they were consumed with this single-minded pursuit of the agent of change, Napster, other companies like Apple or Spotify literally stole a march on them, came in, embraced the new technology, and the rest, as we know, is history. The music industry changed forever, and the record companies were left behind for a very long time, simply because rather than learning from Napster and seeing the opportunity that Napster had seen, they decided to not change, to believe in inertia, to try to continue their monopoly and to fight Napster. And I think there's an absolutely brilliant lesson in that. So my first lesson is to understand yourself and to express this as often as you can, that inertia is slow death. It really is. Secondly, if you're going to change, and this may apply to you or those around you, you need to recognize that a lot of people are frightened of change. I mean, it's a weird thing. I love change, but a lot of people aren't happy with it. And I think that if you don't recognize that that fear is real, then you won't succeed. You need to understand that the fear of change is real. Then you can start to make progress. And conversely, I think, the third thing is probably to explain to people what happens if they don't change. I mean, give them the Napster example. It's as clear as day. That's why every day, in small ways perhaps, we need to change. There's a lot written and talked about failure. And in Britain, I think that as an entrepreneurial society, we're a long way behind the Americans, where a failure in business is seen as a badge of honor. And that's because they understand that from failure we can learn how to get things right next time. So we have to remove our fear of failure and the fear of failure of those around us. I absolutely love the tattoo that Andrew Weatherall, the DJ and cultural linchpin and polymath, had on him, and that was, "Sail we must, fail we may." And Weatherall was a really good example of someone who, every time he'd mastered a musical style, he would almost grow bored of it and try and do something else and move on. And that's what made him such an incredibly important cultural figure and such a much loved and now missed person, because he knew that he had to sail, and he knew that that may involve failing, but he had no choice. He had to move on. So you can learn from failure, truly, but only if you embrace failure and you're open to learn from it, and you don't beat yourself up or beat those up around you who do fail, because with failure come the building blocks of success. Number 5, I think the best way to impose change on your organization, whatever size, is every day, constantly, in very, very slow, small ways, gradual evolution. So number 6 is really make these steps small, make them almost imperceptible, something you can back out of, but something that has given you momentum, just slowly, that every day you do something different. I think that's in many ways the essence of this. Just because you've done something in one way doesn't mean it's the way it should be done. And I think it is that kind of inertia that creeps into organizations. So every day, make sure you do something towards change. Number 7, you need to never berate those around you for failure, provided that the failure comes from a genuine desire to move forward, rather than a sort of protectionist position that they want to stay where they were or indeed move backwards. So you really need to be open to that. And then finally today, the critical thing, I think, the lesson from big business, is to avoid this notion of learned helplessness, which was coined by a man called Pierre Bourdieu. And that was this idea that organizations don't change because they feel they can't, because they feel they will be berated for change. I think this is the sort of thing which often occurs in big, let's say, civil service organizations, where people just feel that they can't change because they're not empowered to make the change. So you have to encourage everyone in your organization to change. And of course, one of the key things there is to encourage people to challenge decisions. Hold on, why is it we do it? I mean, we all know that mantra about the Matchbox company that doubled their profitability or something simply by changing from having a striking sandpaper on both sides of the box to one on one side. And that was suggested by someone on the factory floor. And, I don't know what the story is, but it saved millions and millions of dollars or pounds to that company. And that was someone there being allowed to change, to suggest change. And there was no learned helplessness in that organization. Anyway, I'm approaching 9 minutes, which is longer than I wanted this to be. So I am going to sign off for today. And once I've reviewed this, I will come back for part 2 of my tutorial, How to Change and Why You Must. This is Charlie Gladstone signing off. Thank you very much. Bye.